This is One Sentence News, a daily podcast featuring 3 news stories with a sentence-long summary and 1 sentence of context apiece. I'm Colin Wright. This is a sponsored message. I've been using Anchor as my podcast host for a while now, and it's been a pleasure to use. Anchor offers benefits that most other hosts do not. It's free to use, but it also has a collection of tools that allow you to create a podcast completely within the Anchor website or smartphone app. They distribute your show to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other distribution channels without any additional effort on your part, and you can make money from your podcast without any minimum audience size. So you can use it as a more traditional podcast host like I do, but it's also got everything you need to start a podcast from scratch. If you're keen to give it a shot, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's Monday, January 2nd, 2023. Happy New Year's, everybody. Let's talk about the news. From The Guardian, NHS on track to eliminate hepatitis C 5 years ahead of global targets. England is on track to wipe out hepatitis C within its borders by 2025 due to the success of new screening campaigns and the deployment of effective drug treatments. This announcement is the result of a 5-year deal the NHS, which is the country's national health agency, struck in 2018 for antiviral drugs targeting the disease. And their new screening program, which launched this past September, has allowed tens of thousands of people who had Hep C to get diagnosed and treated far sooner than they would have otherwise. Hepatitis C is a virus that is often spread through blood-to-blood contact, and it typically affects the liver of those infected. It can be tricky to identify during the early stages of infection, though, because folks who catch it generally experience mild or no symptoms until later. From the New York Times, in record numbers, an unexpected migrant group is fleeing to the U.S. For the first time, Nicaraguans make up a significant percentage of the people fleeing various sorts of violence, oppression, and horrible economic situations throughout South and Central America, making their way to the southern U.S. border. That southern border regularly sees high numbers of would-be migrants hoping to get into the States, or bare minimum to get away from the increasingly authoritarian governments and increasingly violent gangs back home. But they usually come from Mexico or Guatemala, in some cases Cuba or Venezuela, and recently several waves of people have arrived from Haiti, but more than 180,000 Nicaraguans crossed into the U.S. in 2022 through November, which is about 60 times as many as in 2020. Overall numbers are up at the southern U.S. border as well, and 2022 was the first year in which more than 2 million undocumented migrants were arrested, most of them having turned themselves in to U.S. authorities. And from Axios, House Committee releases Trump tax returns. Following a long period of will they, won't they speculation and court cases, the U.S. House Ways and Means Committee released 6 years' worth of former President Trump's tax returns last Friday, revealing a tangled web of interconnected companies, a huge number of reported losses, and quite a few questionable numbers. These returns were from 2015 through 2020, and they show that the Trump business empire reported more than $300 million in losses over the 6 years documented, which had the net effect of allowing him to pay no taxes most years. The intricacies of these documents are still being sorted out by experts, but some folks in the know believe the numbers look suspect and could trigger investigations, and the former president and his family are already facing several other ongoing investigations. So while right now this is mostly just a bit embarrassing for the former president, who fought long and hard to keep these documents from being made public, and whose claims of being a successful business person would seem to be tarnished by some of the reported numbers, it could also be one more legal headache for the family, depending on how things play out in the coming weeks. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com. And you can support this and other related projects, like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts at understandery.com.